Welcome back. In this video, we're going to talk about settings and macro configuration. And before that, in the previous video, I forgot to tell you about an important feature, which is the dark and light mode. So it integrates seamlessly with the Blazing macro. So if you have a preference for dark mode and or you work at night very frequently, you can go ahead and set up the dark mode. So yeah, so let's go ahead and start with the settings. So the settings global global for the entire app, so it's not a workspace setting or a macro setting. So the settings are applied for for the entirety of the application. So it's divided in four parts. So the first one is the run macros hotkeys, record hotkeys, and the global window hotkeys, and of course mouse listener hotkeys. So for the first one, we can go ahead and change one of the hotkeys. So for example, we want to run the macros when we click on the Alt plus 9. So let's go ahead and save the settings, go into our first macro, and then what we'll see here is that it changed from Alt plus 2 to Alt plus 9. So if I go ahead and click Alt plus 9 on my keyboard, it will go ahead and automatically run the macro. And if I press Alt plus 1 on my keyboard, it will stop the macro, and we can see here all the different variations of the run. So, and each one of them has its specific it's a specific hotkey, and the same thing for the recording. So if we go back to the settings, so what we changed right now was the run hotkey. So we can do the same thing for the recording hotkeys. We have these values by default, but we can alter them as we want. Another feature, another piece of settings that we can alter is the window. So we can minimize when running, minimize when recording, and pin to top when running. So let's test the first one. So this one, what it will do, it will just when running our macro, it will automatically minimize the window, and it will bring it back up when the macro is stopped. So run, it will automatically bring it down, minimize it, and if I stop it using the hotkey, it will bring it back up. So let's go back to the settings. So let's take that back to the revert it to the default value. We can also do the same thing for the recording. We can minimize when recording to avoid adding multiple steps, like for example if minimize when recording. So we can go ahead and go back to our macro. So when I hit record, it will minimize automatically to avoid adding some steps. So for example, if I record and it doesn't minimize automatically, I should go ahead and minimize it manually, and it will add the mouse click and the mouse movements to the recorded steps. So let's delete these. We will of course talk about the different functionalities that we can do with the recording and running in a later video. So for now, let's go back to the settings. And of course, we have the last setting on the window that enables us to pin to top when running. So this is very useful when we want to keep Blazing macros always on the foreground to just to keep up with with the running steps. So for example, if I click run, for example, if I go here, I have OBS that should be now on the foreground, but when I click on and on the screen, it doesn't hide the Blazing macros. So when I stop it, for example, I click here, it will hide it. So let's go back to the settings and bring everything back to the default value. The mouse listener is honestly the most useful hotkey. So let's change it to Alt plus 1. So it's just my preference to have it at the Alt plus 1. Let's go back and see where you can use it. So let's go back to our macro. So for example, it is very useful when you want to create a mouse operation. So for example, mouse click, mouse move, mouse scroll, or pixel color. So you can go ahead and you can see here Alt plus 1 to record the X and Y coordinates. So by default, you should write them manually. So if you want to to choose this point. If we can simulate it, it will give us that the 1000 by 500 is this position. But if, for example, I want to record this one, for example, for clicking the GitHub icon, I can just click on Alt+1. It will record automatically the position and update the coordinates accordingly. So I can simulate it now, and it is on this Discord logo. So of course you can do this on the mouse click, mouse move, mouse scroll, and on the pixel color. So for the pixel color, it also detects the pixel. So yeah, we record our mouse can automatically record our mouse coordinates. So that was all regarding the settings. So I honestly keep everything to the default except for the mouse listener, because by default it is Alt, but I'd rather have it at Alt+1 too, because it will intervene with my Alt tab. So I change tabs, Windows tabs, by using Alt plus tab, and if I click on Alt, it will record the mouse movement, so the mouse coordinates. So I always set it up to Alt+1, but you can go ahead and do as you want with the hotkey. So let's go back here. So we saw the global settings, but Blazing macros also provides a configuration that is specific to a macro. So for example, this configuration is specific to my first macro, and my second macro has its own configuration. So let's go ahead and go back to my first macro. So the configuration enables us to provide some hooks. So for example, when I finish this macro after hook action, when the macro finishes running, by default it does nothing afterwards, but you can choose to shut down or lock the Windows session, or you can choose whatever from the list. Also, you can choose the number of execution. By default is one. So for example, if you set to and save, when we click on run, it will run the steps, and when it hits the last step, it will rerun the same macro again, because we mentioned that we want two executions. uh, Another useful one is scale durations by by a percentage. So by default is 100%. So uh, 2 seconds will be waiting 2 seconds. But for example, if someday you have some poor connection or something like that, and waiting 2 seconds doesn't uh, doesn't make a page appear or something like that. If you're waiting for a image to appear and you're waiting 2 seconds and it's not enough, you can scale by for example 200% to avoid editing each step. So for example, if this one was 2 seconds, you will have to update each one of them. But if you update the global one to 200%, 4 seconds becomes 8, and 2 becomes 4, and it avoids you avoid repeating the update on all the steps. So, and of course, this is only used when you come to a situation that requires you to scale durations by a certain amount. And the last one, which is beep on failure. This is very useful when you want to be notified when the macro fails. So for example, if you have a macro that will take hours to run, and you are not always in front of your computer, so you can check this one. You can check this one, and for example, let's simulate this. So let's create a go to step, and in the go to step, one of the options is previous step. But for this one, we cannot go to a previous step because it is the first step, so it will fail, and we can test that. So run, and as you saw, first step is trying to go to a previous step, which is an impossible case, and it will stop the macro automatically, and give us a pop-up indicating the error, and as you heard, the beep sound. So yeah, and yeah, that was all regarding the settings and the configuration, and see you in the next one.